all wrapped up, done and dusted. Let's move to the next series.
Yeah, we have, if we can get a look at the players coming up next, I believe we have BigBen up against DANSWF, bringing what seems to be like we've narrowed ourselves down to the most standard of the standard. Both players here bringing very, very expected lineups. You know, we've been saying it. This is kind of, it seems to be boiling down to the most expected class. Oh, actually, sorry, that's the mage there for BigBen. Well, the big three in the rogue, priest, and the druid being represented from both players. And an interesting ban from Dan to not get rid of any of the holy trinity of Hearthstone classes at the moment.
Yeah, and it looks with the Shaman potentially looking to maybe target something specifically, doesn't really want to get rid of the druid, maybe scared of what the priest or the mage can bring to the table. It's one of those question marks that can be thrown up. You're not ever totally sure what type of priest it could be. It could be that Frostlich Janna control priest. It could be that sort of tempo...
That would be an interesting deck.
Frostlich Janna Mage, or the Tempo Mage, or, you know, Secret Mage even. So obviously there's you know, a whole host of things that it could be, and sometimes when you're just not sure, best strategy is to just get rid of it. However, obviously Tempo Rogue featuring heavily in pretty much everyone's decks thus far. A very, very strong deck, and you saw Deathsy showing exactly what it can do, find its way out of those tight situations, Shadow Step, Prince Keleseth, all of those good things that we love the interaction of in our sort of our ladder games. I love that fun interactive play of Prince Keleseth into Shadow Step, Prince Keleseth. I just, every time I see it, a small tear rolls down my face because of the beauty of that play.
Yeah, it's, well, obviously there's the high roll opportunity, but kind of with every deck at the moment, there is the optimum high roll opportunity, which is pretty easy to play, where you get all your ramp into Ultimate Infestation, or you get Raza and Anduin on curve, or you get Keleseth double Shadow Step. It's the games where that doesn't occur that you really have to apply a little bit more creative thought.
Dan, obviously hyped. Ben, very chilled. He's a very chilled out player. Obviously did incredibly well at DreamHack recently. DreamHack Valencia, I believe, came second. Did pretty well in the ESL Premiership last, making it to the finals too. So Ben, a very, very accomplished UK player, sort of really risen this year in terms of his performances, and I've been really enjoying watching him grow as a player, and also does a bit of casting from time to time too. So
yeah, I've casted with him a few times now. He's a lovely boy to cast with. And, I mean, the most important thing, I don't know if you know, Dan Gaskin, my really good friend, who...
Yes, who I have unfortunately replaced.
Yeah, he's, like, really good at casting Hearthstone. He really likes me and thinks I'm really cool. We love his room, BigBen's room. We think it's really cool, like his little...
I was a big fan of Lemon's room. I was a big fan of Lemon's
nice
room.
cottage.
He had a cottage-style attic last... I think Ben's got a nice, clean room. He's displaying... Those, Dan's got a cabin bed. He's got the, what are they called? The futon beds? What are they? I mean, I used to have that when I was about 12, but, you know, maybe Dan's still living that dream.
Maybe he is 12 and nobody's any the wiser. Haha. Yeah.
Obviously, Ben, proud of it. Eminem jerseys, Eminem snapbacks behind him. And is that a companion cube like picture on the wall?
Yes, we've established this. We love the cube. Come on, mate. Keep up.
I'm a bit behind the times. I gotta agree. It's very sort of minimalist, Ben's room, but I like it. Just the sort of minimalist drawers with the companion cube and a bit of sort of merch in the back. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm going to be on board with you there.
Wicked. I'm glad we can agree here. But in terms of his hand he's got going here, pretty nice as well. He can combo out the SI here to get that early board control. Also deny the ability for totems to come down, because a 3-3 on the board trades so favorably against the totems, be it Manatide or Primal Fin.
Do you need to, though? You could dagger up this turn, and you've got the option of South Sea and SI next turn. I mean, obviously, SI7 early on the board is always good. Looks like he's going to go for Shaku, though. So coin into Shaku does limit what you can do with SI7 next turn, but obviously gives you the option to pull out a card and trade into one of these Fireflies early on as well.
Yeah, I don't mind this play at all, because, you know, I was saying the benefit of the SI7 agent is it denies the potential for Manatide Totem. But you still got this with this play because you want to be daggering anyway. You probably don't want to play a naked SI without getting the combo down. And you can use even just the patches from the Pirate to clear off the Manatide and take out one of these Fireflies with your weapon as well. So this still works out pretty decently well.
See what you get here. You're going to get Wicked Witch Thing, the Totem Lady.
That's right, Wicked Witch Doctor. A lot more powerful in Miracle Rogue than it tends to be in Keleseth Rogue. There have been many a game where I've just summoned a whole bunch of Taunt Totems. Well, I say many a game. Once it happened to me, I just summoned a whole bunch of Taunt Totems up against an aggressive Shaman.
As you can see, I was thoroughly informed on the name of that card, having not seen it for quite a while. Last time I saw this card was in a Falcone brew that he made, I think, last December.
Yeah,
his Wicked Witch Doctor Shaman Totem thing.
I mean, he was trying to revitalize it because it was, I mean, obviously it was at its peak when Shaman was at its peak, when Spirit Claws was at its best. God, it's been so long, I'm forgetting the name of the cards. The Totem Golem, the Tuskar Totemic, the Tunnel Trog, all the big T's. But now it's significantly less powerful, given that there's few zero-cost cards running the deck.
I think you've hurt her feelings, Derek.
I've hurt her feelings?
She's a strong, independent Wicked Witch Doctor, and she don't need no totems or spells.
You asked me, she's a bit of a witch.
Well, it's in her name.
Yeah.
But she could be a doctor, too. It's like two ends of the spectrum. A witch and a doctor.
Well, it's kind of both. You meet in the middle.
Do you? What are you saying about doctors? Do you think they've got some sort of magical powers?
No, I'm saying witch doctors do, because it literally has witch in their name. Regular doctors.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from, Derek.
I don't.
You raised me, and I concede.
Okay, so
good game, and Dan's not happy with that play there.
Yeah,
not happy at all.
This has worked out so well for BigBen here, keeping the Shaku alive for another turn because he played it as early as possible when his opponent's board was relatively weak. I mean, looking back on it, like, nice play. His opponent didn't have the Jade Claws or far away head on board, so now he can capitalize on that. The 2-3 body is still very relevant, and he can keep drawing the cards for yet another turn.
Maybe Dan is sad because he had the option to play Serenite Chain Gang. There could be the thought that he wanted to save that for Evolve. It's like basically budget Doppelgangster.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, budget Doppelgangster is Serenite Chain Gang, but he had the option to play that, and it just meant that it was maybe a bit easier for him to trade into Shaku.
That is beyond horrible. That is nothing.
Worst. There's literally just a dead card in hand.
Yep, it's filling up space in your hand. I mean, obviously you could get an Overload, which could bring it down to 9 or 10. But yeah, obviously that's a very, very low roll. Icebreaker as well. Pretty much a 3-mana 1/3 weapon. Your rogue is, your hero power is basically doing the same thing but better.
Elemental here. He's going to dagger up this turn, leave the Primal Fin alive, because a nude Primal Fin isn't exactly the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, you're very happy to clear that up on the following turn.
Dan seems happy that it survived, though.
Ooh.
And now he's got the option to... Does he want to clear up this Shaku now with the J Claws? I saw you sort of... Yeah, I think that's going to be the play. He just wants to get rid of Shaku. It's already had more value than an average Shaku would get, and he's pretty happy to get that off the board right now.
It's too important. You're overloading for 1 here as well, which is really not that bad because it sets up for Saronite into Evolve on the following turn anyway. And getting rid of that Keleseth, getting rid of the Shaku, sorry, you don't know what your opponent has gained into their hand. This could be Fire Elemental, Bloodlust, Maelstrom Portal, whatever amazing Shaman cards that you can gain. Drakari Defender has synergy with the Snow Fury Giant.
It'll become a playable card.
Yes!
It will become a 10 mana, I believe, playable card.
I think an 8 mana 8/8 because the Drakari Defender overloads you for 3.
Oh, does it?
It's a bad card. I'm not saying it's a good card, but maybe if the overload isn't too relevant and you can bring down
he's like, yes, I can make it playable.
The synergy.
Ben is happy that he's finally got the option to play Snow Fury Giant.
But again, this is a difficult spot for Dan. Ben has put him, again, in a tough situation. Like, you could go for the Saronite Chain Gang Evolve, but then all of a sudden you're letting your opponent trade into your minions, which are so valuable. You have nothing else to develop onto the board in your hand. So you want to go for the Devolve to deny the Pirate synergies, but then they've still got a whole bunch of Snow Flipper Penguins.
Maybe you're just saying that I'm hoping I draw the out of a Maelstrom Portal, you know, next turn, and Maelstrom Portal cleans things up. So, you know, maybe playing for that. Because, you know, when you're the Shaman, you want to be in a position where you have board control. Going into turn 5, turn 6, where Bloodlust is going to be a threat, you're forcing BigBen to catch up, you know, from that point. And you can see Dan he's kicking himself because it felt like he played losing cards from the get-go, never looked to fight for board control, played pretty sort of passive cards early on. And maybe Saronite Chain Gang would have been the better play to just, you know, help him control board a bit better on turn 4. And I think that's why Dan was kicking himself, because he played the Primal Fin and the patches to clean things up, but they just got cleaned up so easily by what BigBen had.
Yeah. So Ben had another choice to make here in going for the less mana efficient but more aggressive option in Cobalt Scalebane, or the more standard play, arguably more heavy in board control play of going for the Cairn. He went for the Cairn in the end, which I think I probably agree with, due to the fact that it's, you're not going to be killing your opponent anytime soon. You don't have Bloodlust or Flame Tongue Totem in your deck. You want to be relying on keeping control of the board. Ooh.
It's not a bad, not a bad evolve, obviously, but Ben doesn't have to kill the Scalemancer. He doesn't have to kill it.
He doesn't have to.
He can just leave it. And obviously, maybe as a token, Bloodlust will be a thought. Obviously, you can evolve it again into something more powerful, so it's always going to be a 5-mana evolve target on the board. But it's not a great set of evolves for Dan. I don't think he's going to be overly happy with it. I think Ben also choosing not to play Cobalt that turn because, again, the threat of Maelstrom Portal just meant that you lose a lot of the effectiveness of that Cobalt because you just clear up all your tokens that are going to get the 1/1 or the added 3 damage to them.
This is a tough turn for Ben because although he's got a pretty full hand, over half of his cards are Shaman cards, and they're pretty bad Shaman cards.
This is Drakari Defender turn, mate. Okay, so
you think? Yeah, I think you probably want to be going a bit more hard on controlling the board now to deny the second Evolve or Thrall Deathseer or Bloodlust, 2 of which are actually in hand already for the Shaman, only leaving up the Scalemancer. As you said, that's rough, but this is a huge draw. I know I'm using the caster meme, but wow, this absolutely changes everything.
It's exactly what Dan needed to get back in the running. You can see Ben sees it. The Evolve comes through as well. Oh, he gets some incredible cards. He gets the High Main, one of the best 6 drops in the game. He's going to get some refresh from the Drake. He's going to get a Dragon out of that. Rathian to soak up some damage, and Muckler too. It really couldn't have been much better for Dan because he knows how many basically crap cards are in Ben's hand because of how many Shaman cards are taking up. That's 3 Shaman cards that he knows that Ben hasn't played yet, so they're probably not going to have a huge amount of viability.
Exactly.
Suddenly, Dan has found himself with a top deck right back in this game. And he's dancing. There's some music playing in Dan's head right now, and it's happy music, my friend.
It is indeed. I mean, for Dan, it's pretty easy to act like the big man when you're hiding behind literally a dragon, a lion, and a gorilla, all protecting you and doing a very blooming good job of it. I'd like to see him, when he's got the snowflip penguins on the side, if he's still all that.
Ladder, because that tiny ladder needs scaling. I remember loved climbing those tiny ladders when I was a kid.
I love those too. I always wanted to be top bunk.
You're top bunk in my heart now.
It's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me.
I try.
Says a lot about how miserable my life is.
Jade Lightning comes out. Now, if you could roll a Wrath of Air Totem, that's a really nice trade with the Jade Lightning into the buffed up Cairn.
Ooh, is it just lethal, though? You've got
12
and 6.
Yeah, that's just lethal.
Closes out the game.
Wow.
Oh, Ben mouthing, no way.
Exactly lethal. Exactly lethal off the top as well.
That is disgusting. That game was looking for the longest time like it was going in Ben's favor. He got the Shaku to draw 2-3 cards, was it, at the start of the game. He played it really nicely, making sure he prioritized value while also getting board control. But when your opponent gets Bone Drake and High Main off of a top-decked Doppelgangster, what you gonna do?
They were pretty terrible Shaku draws, though. Icebreaker is terrible. Drakari Defender, pretty terrible. Unplayable Snow Fury Giant. That's just 3 dead cards in your hand. Like, they're just taking up space. It's just it's like threatening you to mill cards because you're never going to play them. Tough break for Ben because, to be honest, he made some really clever moves, dealt with the early Shaman board very easily. That Shaku turn 2 just meant that he was able to trade up quite a few times, got a good value out of it. But hey, this is Hearthstone. Top decks win you games sometimes, and I mean, Dan saved it for the right situations. He saved that Saronite Chain Gang that bought him the Scalemancer that eventually got him towards a High Main. So you could argue that he was lucky, but he also played to the out of a Doppelgangster top deck as well. So
sure, yeah, I think I agreed with Dan's plays pretty much along the line. Like, not going for Saronite Chain Gang to evolve as quickly as possible, and instead going for the Jade Claws to stop the draw from the Shaku. But yeah, overall, it's got to feel rough from Ben.
I mean, it was 3 top decks that won Dan the game in a row. Bloodlust, Jade Lightning, and also the Doppelgangster.
And he picked up Evolve the turn before.
So it was like 4 amazing top decks in a row for Dan. Ben's got to keep his head because He's now got Raza and Shadow Reaper Anduin in his opening hand.
He hasn't got to keep anything. He could just, you know, he could click the mouse wherever he wants and he'd probably still end up winning this game.
Karma is a cruel mistress sometimes, and Dan might be on the receiving end of it here.
I wonder if he'll be doing the tough man dance at the end of it, or whether he'll be scurrying up his ladder.
What kind of tough men do you know that dance like that?
Well, you know, giving it all that. Yeah, okay, production is pointing at himself like an absolute roadman.
Will does that tough man. Look, I'm not going to say I've been in a club and I've been in a scary situation where I have danced exactly like Dan. I'm going to say it definitely bought me points. No one came near me. I'm assuming it's because I look tough.
I mean, the thing is, if I was in a fight and a 6'4" hulk of man started just dancing like that, I would run for the hills.
Does that say more about the stature of the man or more about the dance?
I think it says more about me being a wuss.
Oh. Derek, do you know what? You don't need to take life's fights. You can get by being a wuss.
Thanks, man.
I've never taken a fight in my life. I'm also a wuss.
Yeah. I've never had a fight. I've been hit, but I've never had a fight.
Did you?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
It's actually, well, it's quite funny. A kid in my class back in secondary school was very violent, and he was having a go at someone in PE once, and so I said, stop being so violent, and he punched me in the face.
I mean, stop being so violent, you swine.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
I mean, to be fair, like, it's a pretty good response. It's quite funny.
So, Ben in a situation where he'd love to maybe bump in and heal, but bumping in and healing also just gives a card over to Dan.
Yep. It's a tough situation. You need to remember that draw for you is an awful lot worse than draw for your opponent. You've got what you need. You don't need to be drawing cards anywhere near as much. You just need to be denying draws for your opponent. Having said that, though, can you really deny draws for your opponent here? Priest of the Feast could have come down, but then it still would have been Acolyte attacking in, healing up, maybe a Shadow Word Pain killing off the Priest anyway.
Maybe he's thinking he can get value out of Pint-Sized Potion, you know, using that Acolyte on his side as well. He can bump in, then Acolyte and trade over. So, you know, maybe thinking about using the Pint Size further down the line. He's playing some 4D chess here, Ben.
We're in 2017. He's over in 2013, making basic plays.
He's playing pre-nerfed Undertaker, slamming down death rattles left, right, and center.
The gentleman's Hearthstone.
Absolutely. Oh, look at this. I like this play. This, by the way, is something that I learned over the weekend. This is a Scoundrel learning session. How to play Hearthstone? Nope, I still haven't learned how to do that. Right. But in this matchup, Priest versus Priest, it's all about denying and claiming draw from your opponent. And look at this. I mean, he's basically denied draw from Ben, getting massive draw for himself. Hasn't picked up any useful cards, but
I mean, this is why in this exact matchup, a lot of players are saying you throw the Loot Hoarder, you throw the Blood Mage down, you throw Acolyte, because it's more important to just get rid of those in the mulligan and draw another card anyway, so your opponent can't get value with Potion of Madness and Silence. Dan seems to be pretty upset.
You can Organize and Binding Heal here to just get rid of the Raza, which is look like what Dan is considering.
Yeah, it's probably worth it. The Doomsayer, it has a chance of going off, which maybe would have been the play. I mean, you're afraid of, what, the Holy Nova? Oh, no, sorry, the Shadow Word Pain, the Silence. I suppose there's a few things that could mess you up there. So getting rid of it here, I can totally understand the reasoning.
So he's got Raza in hand, obviously, but there is a card advantage for Dan. And Dan still has a couple of turns to draw what he needs to catch up to Ben. You saw Dan very, very happily clapping away, knowing that a mulligan card for Ben. Ben had that in his opening hand, was Raza. And there was a card right on the left of Ben's hand that he has not touched or played yet. And so Dan will be thinking, yeah, that might be Shadow Reaper Anduin, and I'm keeping my eye on it. But the claps came out for Dan. I can only imagine what turn 8 will be like. He might ramp up that clap to a full-scale trombone applause.
Trombone applause? How do you applaud with a trombone?
You just haven't played enough trombone. I can't tell you that. It's secret of the trade, my friend.
I don't even know what to do with that sentence.
Go watch American Pie, and you might find out.
Oh, is it a reference I'm not getting?
Maybe you're too young.
I think I am too young.
It's going to be Shadow Visions picked up, and it's going to heal down to Big Ben's face.
Yeah, Shadow Visions is pretty good. I mean, you obviously, you want to pick it here because there are instances if you get a completely useless card where you just don't pick it, if it's like Bloodlust or something like that, where you're never going to get value out of it. But Shadow Visions, you obviously want it. It's not incredibly good in this matchup. I guess you're mostly saving it for a crazy Lyra or Gadget Sand auctioneer turn.
So there is options for BigBen. He's actually got a really nice combo with the Pint Size into Shadowed Horror. I don't think he's going to feel forced to use it just yet.
Oh, yeah.
But here we go. Spirit Lash into the Wild Pyromancer. He's going to start drawing some cards off that. That is not bad at all. Dragonfire comes out as one. Like we said, all of the good cards really have been picked up by Ben here already.
Yeah.
Really just looking maybe for Kazakus, but apart from that, he's pretty much got everything that he needs already.
Well, I mean, draw is still important because the main thing he's looking for is the Prophet Velen and the Mind Blast. Because very often in this matchup, it's a race not just to the Raza and Anduin, although that is the main thing you're looking for. It's to get the 30 damage burst in one turn. Because if your opponent's healing up a whole bunch with Greater Healing Potion, Binding Heal, Priest of the Feast, all that stuff, you can't kill them in time before they heal up.
This is a tough choice. Power Word Shield was obviously great for the card draw. He had the option, like you said, for the Mind Blast. That's 20 damage burst with Velen if you get the opportunity to use that, obviously over 2 turns. But still no Shadow Reaper Anduin for Dan, but he has got the Raza, so he can't be too unhappy with that.
Okay, can we just sit back and watch the reaction?
I'm ready. Here we go. Not quite trombone applause, but he's
where's the trombone?
It is the worst feeling in the world when you're playing a priest and you see them heal their own face on turn 8 when they've already played Raza.
Yeah,
you know what's coming down.
You know what's what. And, I mean, no signs of slowing either for Ben. He's got 2 draw cards that are guaranteed draw in the Loot Hoarder and the Novice Engineer. He could go Kazakus for 5 if he wanted to, even though you usually go for 1 after you've completely completed the hero power. The Power Word Shield is pretty much the only way you can cycle with a card generated from the Shadow Visions. So doing a good job here is Dan to try and get that Anduin as soon as he can, because I mean, as soon as he gets it, he's looking okay, but it's still just so rough here.
Dan has drawn a lot of cards here, and I think he's saying, where is my Shadow Reaper Anduin? Plenty of cards with BigBen to work with here, and you know, he's got that pint-sized potion and Shadowed Horror to clear the board up if he wants, and also start slamming 2 damage into face for Dan. Looks like that's going to be the play.
Yeah, could have gone with the Dragonfire, I suppose, but you're getting more hero powers this way. It's cheaper, so you can fit in more stuff on the other side. You can get in both draw options or just the Kazakus. It's all fine.
How do we squelch Dan on our end? That's the real question.
Why would you want to squelch this? This is saltiness at its finest.
Ben looks unfazed. He's going to slam the Loot Hoarder as well. That's a lot of damage on that turn.
I mean, he's playing into the obvious card of Potion of Madness. I think that's come down for Dan at the start of the game, but I couldn't tell you. I mean, if it hasn't come down, then you should definitely have gone with the Kazakus, because you're just giving away a draw.
He's played Potion of Madness already right now.
Right, okay, yeah, so, as I thought.
He's going to use the Shadowed Horror to get a draw on his own set of cards. Again, searching desperately. Still doesn't find the Shadow Reaper Anduin. I'd be enticed to see how many cards Dan actually has left in his deck at this point in time, because obviously finding it in the bottom 5 cards of your deck is not a great place to be in the Priest versus Priest matchup. I mean, the meme of the Priest versus Priest matchup is literally, you know, who draws Shadow Reaper, Anduin, and Raza first wins the game, and Ben definitely in that position right now.
It's, you know, it's not as close as all that. Like, if Dan found the Shadow Reaper Anduin, like, pretty much right now, and managed to heal up a bit at the same time, he could still take this game. It's in the same way people exaggerate how powerful Keleseth is in the early turns. You can still come back, as we saw George C beating a double Keleseth opening. But yeah, he has to find it right now or it's just not happening.
Armor's not bad in this matchup. He can give you the slight edge here. I mean, look, BigBen's in a massive commanding position. In the next turn, you know, he's threatening lethal at this point in time. I think you're going to be forced to use any form of board clear that you have. I don't even know if Dan's got any in hand right now. I
mean, so BigBen going for the 5 mana, probably to get the highest amount of draw as possible, because he is expecting a big heal turn here. The Priest of the Feast has a good chance of being drawn at this point. Hasn't been too many cheap spells played, not even the coin. So we're going to see a big heal turn here, for Dan, which is why BigBen decided to go for the higher value option, because he's thinking, if I just go for the 1 damage and he heals up to 25, 27, something like that, then maybe I don't have enough damage to push it back if he gets Anduin off the top.
The problem now for Dan is he's been forced to burn a lot of cards that I think he was saving for Shadow Reaper Anduin. Like the coin, it's a really good tool to just weave in another hero power and set up for yet another hero power after that as well. He's just trying to put himself out of range of a single turn lethal setup for Ben, but obviously there are cards that Ben can use to find that. Mind Blast is a good one. You know, with the cards that he's got in his hand, they're very low value as well. It's a tough position for Dan right now. You don't want to spend too many cards because then you lose your ability to reset your hero power, and he's not going to go any further. No further with the healing from the Priest of the Feast. He's going to happily sit at 17.
So this is 5 damage coming through right away. We need to see 6 more pings, so 5 more cards need to have been played, or 6 more cards need to be played, sorry, which I don't think is possible right now. I'm still not sure what the Kazakh's potion was that was picked up for the Priest overall, but I
don't think it was direct damage.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing. I mean, he was really looking for direct damage or draw. Both would be perfectly good here.
Might see the Dragonfire potion come out here, just to clear out the Priest of the Feast to give Dan less of an out. Add 2 random demons to your hand is one of them.
Yeah, if you can't kill off your opponent here, you really do want to be getting rid of the Priest of the Feast at least. We saw the 7 armor we can see there for the Kazakh's potion, so that's not bad if your opponent's going for 1-turn kill, because if Anduin is picked up now, on the following turn, we can see 1-turn kill, which is why Dan was saving all these 0 mana cards. But I think, given that you still have the coin, you could have thrown out 1 more 0 mana card to your opponent, because with the coin and the Circle of Healing, I guess that's only 28 actually.
Curious Glimmerroot is a really good pickup here, depending on what he can draw from it. Again, he needs to play 5 more playable cards this turn. I don't think he's too far off, depending on what he picks up. No, Potion of Madness isn't going to do it.
Yeah, that's terrible.
That gives Dan just 1 more turn to work with here.
He's going with demons for this potion. I mean, that's kind of rough, but
you can pick up just 1 mana.
Fodder, yeah, just something so that you can keep firing off your potions is the main thing. Because the amount of heal your opponent can do is limited. He's playing Binding Heal, so probably not playing Greater Healing Potion. We've already seen Priest of the Feast. Lakari Felhound is a little scary. But it looks to me like Dan might have found he might have found Anduin, and if he's not dead, then he does have damage to kill his opponent on the following turn.
Oh, it's not. It's Power Word Shield. I don't think he's got it. Has he got enough with Power Word shielding a minion?
No, I think this is it.
This is it.
So unfortunate, obviously, for Dance. He just didn't get there quite soon enough. I think he played pretty well, all things considered, to give him the highest chance of doing that. He kept his 0 mana card, saying, you know, if you have Prophet Velen or Mind Blast, I'm going to be dead anyway, so there's no point healing up to the really high life totals by expending all my resources. I'm going to keep enough to deliver a 1-turn kill and hope I find it in the next few cards.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he didn't overextend in that Priest of the Feast. He made sure that keeping the coin, those 0 mana cards, really important, like you said. Just a shame that, again, sometimes you can get bricked by where your Shadow Reaper is in the deck, and it just happened to be in the bottom 5 cards of
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I don't know. Lose.
Forget about it.
Yeah,
that's
forget about it. Anyway, series is going to get leveled up 1-to-1 here between Dan and Ben. Ben gets a win with his Highlander Priest, which is always a good win to get, because sometimes it can feel like if you don't draw those cards, it can be a really difficult deck to sort of slot a win in here or there. Hadn't had the best performances over the weekend. I mean,
yeah, that's fair. I think the stat I saw that when you take out mirrors, it was hovering at a positive win rate, about 55%, which is, you know, what you're expecting, because Jade Druid had one of the weakest lineup performances over the weekend, because it was either banned, it was far and away the most banned class, or it was targeted. That's kind of one of the main things that the nerf has done. It's not necessarily brought the deck to a point where it's unplayable or even tier 2. It's just that you can now put a strategy forward where you can target it, and it doesn't have a crazy win rate against everything. But the Priest, you're generally looking to target that instead with some of your other decks, like the Jade Druid and the Rogue, if you've teched it in the right way.
Look at this, Prince Velen and Plague Scientist, an inclusion here for Dan.
Yeah, kind of an interesting hybrid in terms of the deck, because Valinor is obviously the card that was being brought by Orange and Purple. They've had, clearly, I keep bringing their names up, but just in this tournament, they've had a huge influence in what is being run. The popularity of Shaman, the popularity of Prince Valinor, the popularity of Cairn. All of those cards are cards those two players were really spouting how good they are.
Ben, probably pretty confident that Keleseth is not in Dan's hand because the Swashbuckler was played on turn 1. You want to get maximum value out of patches by holding it for as long as you can.
Good point.
And you can see here, actually Dan's not got a bad curve out. You can coin Southsea Captain next turn and then Southsea Captain following. And actually when you go that wide early on against the Druid, it can be difficult. But Ben has bricked on the wild growth, and that will be a good sight for Dan. He'll be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, this is just exactly what you want to be doing against the Druid, because they're using all their early turns in going for mana ramp, so you can capitalize on that by playing a whole bunch of pirates. He doesn't want to go for the captain right there, though, which he probably was just afraid of Golakka Crawler, because, you know, you're going for the hip. Actually, having said that, you know, you don't know that there is the captain coming from Dan whatsoever. So if you had the Golakka in hand, I think you probably would have just played it, given that there was obviously no wild growth alternative because we saw the hero power there. I think I probably would have preferred the coin Southsea from Dan on that turn, but it would have worked out so much worse for him if he had that.
Yeah, again, it's difficult to know what you're playing around sometimes in some of these decks. The tech-ins are pretty strong. Ben does get value out of Golakka. But Dan, I think, has a pretty solid follow-up turn with Shaku. And now it's just Ben. Ben can actually start tempoing out with Jade Spirit now as well. He's also got the Fandral in hand as well, which begs an answer. Dan will have to have an answer to the Fandral, which can be difficult without backstab and things early on for the Rogue.
So this Doomsayer has interestingly been in a pretty rough spot at every point that it could have been played for Ben. He was thinking about it on turn 2, but thinking, probably not worth it quite yet. Turn 3, he had the Crawler, and here he is afraid of coin Valspine Slayer to get rid of it, which would have probably been a bit too much tempo for the Rogue. So I guess he's thinking, I'm going to save it for Spreading Plague Doomsayer on the same turn, but that's quite a valuable anti-aggro tool that he's keeping back for a long time.
You can see here, Dan has got the option of the coin Valspine Slayer. He can also do something fancy with SI7 Agent if he really wanted to. That feels like it's a massive use of resources, but it does clear up, I think, more of the board, which is what he's going for.
So you've still got the Shadow Step in hand that you can use to activate the Valspine Slayer. Going for it right away, though. This hand is starting to look a bit clunky, and because of this, I think I probably would have preferred the coin into Valspine Slayer. You give yourself, you use up more mana, you're still left with the Shadow Steps, so you can Shadow Step that Slayer back into hand, you get more stats on board. I think you need to be playing a little bit more aggressively, because if you're waiting until the 7/7/8/8 Jades come down, you've probably lost anyway.
Lost the game already. He does have that Plague Scientist in hand, though, remember. That is another way of dealing with a minion of some sort.
Well, that's another reason to go for the Slayer, then, I think, because you have a secondary way of dealing with a big minion.
Now, Dan, a little bit light on what to play this turn. Pirate and Southsea isn't a bad way to finish things up, though, if he wants, and he can deal with the 1/1 with his dagger.
Yeah, you are then curving into Captain, into Plague Scientist, or Jade Behemoth, depending on what the situation calls for, which is pretty good.
Speaking of pickups from his stealing cards, Jade Behemoth and Ironbark Protector aren't bad pickups in any way, shape or form. You can play those cards. They are playable, which, to be honest, from what I've learned from Shaku and Swashbuckler, just being playable is an outcome that is good.
If they got a little green border, that's a win. Yeah. That's a small victory. Yeah, the Jade Behemoth, you're obviously not going to be under too much pressure in terms of your own health total. It's more just protecting your other minions. If you can get big Edwin on board to keep slamming into face, maybe a minion with Cold Blood on it, then the Jade Behemoth can protect it. I thought we were getting some slightly ruder hand gestures there from Dan, but thankfully he's just pointing at the screen.
Firefly comes out, though, and it activates the Valspine Slayer. Pretty standard turn, you would feel, for Dan. He has got options of a Southsea and a Plague Scientist, but that does trade off his Southsea deck hand as well. You can't leave up Fandral, realistically, so it's got to be dealt with one way or the other.
Even ignoring the effect, it's still better to get rid of it here.
Oh, that's interesting. I think he just wants to get the dagger on board, right?
Yeah, but why? It's probably so you're going into turn 7. You're expecting to see Malfurion from your opponent. With this line of play, you end up with Oh, no, I guess you end up with a 1-2 and a 2-3 on board instead of just a 3-3.
He has also got the option of now using that Flame Elemental to again proc the Valspine Slayer down the road, and maybe just saying to Ben, I don't have Valspine Slayer, so feel free to splurge a minion on board that's going to be big enough for me to warrant use of it. Holding on to it, like you said, though, can be difficult, because often people use Valspine Slayer just specifically for tempo. Just to generate tempo on board and get things rolling back into because it's tempo rogue after all, and it just feels at this point in the game, Dan isn't threatening a huge amount for Ben, although Ben's hand is pretty dead. Only we can see that. We have caster vision, obviously, but you know, if Ben actually had good cards.
If Ben had good cards, he's got pretty good cards, I would say. Going into the ultimate infestation on the following turn is perfect.
Yeah. But I mean, in terms of just actually having generated enough Jades now.
Yeah. Okay. It's still very unthreatening what he's doing for the moment. It's more just defensive plays. But this is very often how this matchup plays out. You're hoping to survive the early game and ramp up to ultimate infestation. It's less about Jade beatdown in the mid game, more just about defense, and spreading plague and ultimate infestation are great ways of getting there. Yeah, the ramp up into ultimate infestation, I think Dan pretty clearly knows what's going to be coming on the next turn. Yep.
The best way to think about it is how he's even going to intend to play around it. I just think it's difficult for you to do that. I think you have to play Valspine Slayer this turn.
Yeah, me and Dan both with making pretty much the same facial expression there of Tyrantus. You know, seems good.
It's not a bad card.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a great card, but here, it kind of is a great card. Against Druid, there is literally nothing they can do. They can't even target it with their removal spells.
Well, he's going to Spreading Plague this turn. Actually, not even going to use the Ultimate Infestation. I think Dan was expecting Ultimate Infestation, and obviously it's very difficult to play around Spreading Plague and Ultimate Infestation at the same time.
Yeah, this is definitely the play. I mean, I was saying he's ramping up into Ultimate Infestation as quickly as possible, but there's no point in, you know, very often on turn 10 you'll have a stronger play in terms of pure tempo than Ultimate Infestation. There would obviously have been more options later on down the line, but to be honest, it was looking like it's going to shape up. The Ultimate Infestation is pretty good on the next turn no matter what. It's
difficult for Dan in that situation, though, because, you know, a lot of people say, well, you play around Ultimate Infestation versus Druid, you don't play into it. But Dan saw a clear ramp into 10 mana the following turn. The obvious play is Ultimate Infestation, so a good way to deal with Ultimate Infestation is say, well, don't give him a single target that's going to get him back on the board, go wide. But Ben had both of the answers to those scenarios, and Dan just now in a situation where plays Ironbark and struggles to think what to do after that. It's not a great space for Dan to be in on the Rogue right now.
Yeah, so the benefits of trading in here, probably not much. Like, you don't have SI7 agent or anything that you need to chip the health down for.
I mean, Ben doesn't even need to Ultimate Infestation if he doesn't want to. He can just use Nourish and Doomsayer. You are risking another Valspine, and then you lose a bit of tempo on board, but...
So the thing is, like, setting up a clear board for Ultimate Infestation isn't that good. Like, it's not bad. You take that situation, but you want to be targeting something with the Ultimate Infestation. And maybe your opponent has gained that second Valspine that they were saving this for.
It's just a tough space because you trade 3 of your Scarabs in to just get the value out of trading into the Ultimate Infestation into the Ironbark. So... Ultimate Infestation gets you more cards in hand. Nourish and Doomsayer gives you some playable mana. Looks like that's what Ben is going to go for here.
Yeah, I think I probably do like this play a little more. The reasoning being the Ultimate Infestation trades really badly into the Ironbark Protector because you'd have to trade in 3 Scarabs just to kill it off, which means you'd probably leave it up. Then your opponent could develop in a big way on the board, and then there's a chance the Doomsayer is never good again.
Sure, and obviously he runs the risk of the Valspine here. I mean, you take that risk when you run this play. You take the risk of you've seen one Valspine, you're assessing whether there'll be one in hand, and you can see here for Dan, no Valspine as of yet. He has the option to do things this turn that are somewhat interactive. He's got Prince Keleseth if he really wants. That does just get him some 1/1s in his deck.
You probably go for it. Like, you've got enough stuff to do in hand anyway, so I think I probably would have preferred playing out the Keleseth there. And now... for Ben, if his Jades were any bigger, you'd definitely go for Jade Behemoth into Jade Blossom again, because you've got the cards in hand. You just need to be able to react to whatever your opponent does.
The Ultimate Infestation means he burns a card next turn, but that's fine.
Yeah, that's not...
You've not seen either of your Jade Idols yet, so you're not going to burn your Jade Idols. And at this point in time, you're putting your opponent down to 15, essentially, 16. Mark of the Lotus comes out as a double Mark of the Lotus. That's really good for him next turn.
I mean, if you go for Tyrantus here, which isn't the play now that you've got Edwin, it's not even that good. Like, you can just, your opponent can block it with Spreading Plague or Jade Behemoth, and you're going to be dead in a couple turns anyway. I think this still probably goes to the Druid, but this is actually a pretty scary board.
Jade Spirit's not a bad burn. It is a Jade generator, but again, you still have your Jade Idols in tow, so they're always going to give you the infinite Jades for 1 mana, which everybody loves.
Oh, yes.
And now Ben has got options. Again, you can go a bit wider. You can just then use Mark of the Lotus on a Jade Behemoth. Behemoth. I always say that wrong. Behemoth.
Ooh, okay. So I think actually what I was going to say is if you don't go for this line of play, you're probably okay, because I think if you go aggressive, play up the taunts, and just go for killing your opponent with the second ultimate infestation, I think you're probably in a better spot. If you go with this line of play, your opponent's very likely to develop in a large way onto the board next turn anyway, so you're still going to be fighting behind from board, and you might not be able to deliver lethal. But that was a very quick thought, and now that I actually look at it, you've dealt 6 damage by killing off the Hydra, and you can go for double mark here, which is a really powerful play onto the board, which might allow you to close out the game with ultimate infestation. However, having said that, I probably preferred the more aggressive base plan.
Yeah, again, if you can set up for ultimate infestation at almost a guaranteed lethal, you know that the rogue doesn't really run any healing in the deck in any way, shape, or form. You know, it's just 10 mana, burn some cards, kill your opponent. So that's not a bad space to be in. Double Mark of the Lotus coming down though for Dan, and we've seen 1 Vile Spine already. It's difficult to clear this board up.
Yeah, you're definitely not clearing up. And even then, you know, if you had the Vile Spine, you're still in a rough spot. So if we do see the play of Tyrantus, he just loses on the spot, and he's going to be afraid of that, be it through swipe hero power or ultimate infestation. We can still see here with ultimate infestation into the minion attack in, you're still just pretty far ahead on board, actually.
You can push a lot of damage. I don't think it's quite lethal, because you're going to have to, unless you draw. No, I don't think it's quite lethal unless you draw swipe.
That allows you to push forward 3 damage to face, bringing your opponent down to 4, and then if you're not dead, ultimate infestation closes out the game. I think this sets up guaranteed 2-turn lethal.
Yeah, this is a guaranteed 2-turn lethal. This is that ultimate infestation to win the game outright next turn. And again, Dan has got to get through 3 taunts and deal 26 damage in 1 turn, which we all know just is not possible. Ben should tie this game up.
Given the credit, he only has to deal 24 damage. That's child's play.
I mean, I do it on a regular basis, my friend. I was born in 24 damage.
Molded by it.
Molded by it. You weren't even 29 damage.
Mate, I was 29 for sure.
And there we go. I think at this point, Dan, you slam the Tyrantus, you say, I've got your dino boy, and then you just concede.
You heckin' big egg stomper.
Is it an egg stomper?
Well,
how do you know it's
lay eggs? I mean, look at it. It probably stomps on blooming everything. It's literally the size of 10 trees.
It's not even going to slam it. Doesn't want to let him know that he teched that Swashbuck the Tyrantus into his deck. And Big Ben is going to go up 2-1 in this series. Dan, very emotive on camera, as you can see. It's like a new Hello Leroy in addition to the league. And Hello Leroy hasn't been as crazy as I was hoping he would be over the last few weeks. But Dan's taken his place. Gosh darn it.
Well, we haven't even seen him on camera, really, have we? So it's been
disappointment, really.
Yeah, Dan,
I think he's got to step up that cam game to get back on level with Dan.
I think he has. I want to see his whiteboard come out again so we can really see how truly, deeply he is suffering as he gets Keleseth double shadow stepped.
Well, we're going to go into our final game of the series. Ben could tie things up with his own tempo rogue. Just needs to get 1 win out of 2, and not a bad space to be in as the tempo rogue. And looks like he's going to go straight into the mirror. Dan says, okay, I need to beat you with this mirror, then beat you with the priest.
I mean, I knew you liked his room, but I didn't know you liked it so much as to be this biased that you say it's going to be the last game of the series. It could go Dan's way. Anything's possible.
Oh my God, maybe not.
No, maybe not. Never mind. I think Ben finds this pretty amusing as well. I think Kappa Clapper is going to be the emote.
Dan has done a lot of clapping over the last few. Games. I think when he sees Prince Keleseth, Shadow Step Prince Keleseth, he's probably just going to concede on the spot.
I don't think it's going to be that bad, but you know, maybe. You know, we've seen already today Keleseth Shadow Step game being won. BigBen nodding his head like, good, yes. Let the hate flow through you. Kappa Clapper indeed.
And Dan does not top deck his own Keleseth, so he's not happy. He's still clapping away.
So, polishing up this bad situation for Dan, you play aggressive now. This is how you win the game. You cannot win in the late game because your opponent's minions will be too much bigger. You will be getting value traded against too much. So you have to pray that you get a little bit of early board control. You can stick, maybe get those pirate synergies going early on if you can get the captain, and then you kill your opponent with Leroy, Shadowstep, and Cold Blood.
There you go. Laid it out for Dan. If you were listening 10 minutes into the future, you'll understand that. And Valspine's not a bad pickup in this because, again, it can help you deal with some of those annoying empowered minions. And you can see Dan here just going to go as wide as possible. And like you said, you need to start cold-blooding. You need to start thinking about Leroy. Swashbuckler, though. Oh, Patches is going to make his way onto the board.
I think as a 1-1, it's questionable. But as a 3-3, he is well and truly in charge now.
He is. The music is fitting of a 3-3 Patches.
Yeah. I feel like when a 3-3 Patches comes out, it should be like Welcome to the Jungle or something like that, like something a bit more rock and roll.
Welcome to the jungle.
Yeah. Yes.
We've got booty and weird tentacle pirates.
Yeah, that was the original draft, but they didn't find it as catchy.
Who can blame them? You have to have a really high IQ to understand those lyrics.
Whereas AC/DC are on a lower plane of existence to us, I would say.
I would imagine so.
Less successful in every metric of life.
Axel, he really had a high level of IQ to be able to sort of write those Patches-based lyrics 20 years into the past.
Oh yeah, he was predicting the Patches meta way back in the 80s.
6-6 on the Edwin comes down.
Whoa, okay, double Valspine. You do have to bounce back your Shaku. Sorry, I keep messing up those card names. Your Shaku now if you want to, which really sucks because you can't even play it back right away. So I think you probably wait
you can
until you get counterfeit coin. That is a card to get off the Shaku. Wow.
You could even just counterfeit coin into Valspine and then play South Sea if you wanted, but he's going to take the Shadow Step. Maybe even just save the counterfeit coin for another combo. You mean you don't need to play Shaku again this turn, so.
I think taking it a little bit slow maybe here.
Yeah, that's the thought, isn't it? Yeah,
so going into turn 5, there's such a good chance that your opponent plays something big here, be it Scalebane or Hydra. You want to be playing Valspine on both of those. And because of that, you could have played a bit more aggressively, go counterfeit coin into Shaku on the previous turn, and then deckhand into Valspine on this turn, and you can start pushing a lot more aggressively for face damage.
We are going to see Valspine come out, and obviously deckhand trades up into the 4-2, the coin into Shaku as well. This is the aggressive move onto the board that we were looking for from Dan, and again, it plays into that sort of fact that this is a Hail Mary play from Dan now. If this gets cleaned up, he's lost the game almost.
But looking at how it's worked out for Dan, he could have done exactly the same thing last turn. Shaku would have attacked this turn. He would have had a whole nother card to get things going.
I feel like Bone Mare is the play that Dan is hoping for on the next turn, maybe Cold Blood, something like that. This turn, he sets up for Bone Mare in the following turn, and that really is going to put him in a position where Ben will be then looking for the questions. Ben can't even use a Valspine this turn without giving Cold Blood over to something, but he's just going to end up Cold Blooding and Valspining it.
So you're not so much worried about losing the Cold Blood here, because you're going to be winning through board control. It's kind of opposite.
I mean, you've got an uncomboed Cold Blood on every single one of your minions in your deck.
That's a very good point, as well as a Power Word Shield. But it's more the fact that you're losing a Valspine, because if your opponent does go Bone Mare here, you're actually kind of scared. Like, they're in a pretty good spot. It's not available, unfortunately, for Dan's, but he does have a way to protect his Shaku, start drawing some more cards. It's not terrible here, considering how bad of a start it was.
Here we go. Dan just understanding that face is the only place that he has an opportunity to even contend in this game with.
Yep.
There is ways for Ben to deal with it. He's got, well, Assassin's Blade, maybe. Nah, it's not good enough. Leroy Jenkins to clear. I think at this point, he's just going to have to use the Valspine, and suddenly, Dan's not in a half-bad position. Still got Shaku, who's going to be churning out can obviously deal with Shaku with the SI7.
Yeah, I think you go with the captain into SI, because if you go for Assassin's Blade, you're clearing off stuff, but you're still taking the damage from it, which is the main thing you're worried about. Whereas you still get to clear something off with this play, and you are well and truly ahead on the board. That is undisputable. The only way your opponent is going to be closing out the game after you clear up all these minions is going to be through burn.
Dan going to use this to stop the cosplaying Quest Rogue. Deal with one of the minions and start to slam that damage to face. Because like you said, I mean, the out at this point for Dan is hoping that he retains some minions and top decks Leroy Jenkins.
Firefly, not even that bad of a draw. It's a 1 mana 3/4, which you very happily take. But even then, it's still kind of a scary situation for Ben. He's pushed down to the point where Leroy top deck does close out the game. So Dan's has found exactly the situation I was going for. Yeah. Played aggressive and gave himself an out.
Leroy Jenkins is the only top deck that wins Dan the game, and South Sea Captain is not that. But he's not dead as he can see it next turn.
Yep, you take the trade into the captain, because I guess maybe a pirate comes down.
South Sea, yeah.
I guess maybe there's a Shadow Step that could come down, but yeah, there's a Shadow Step been used, so the SI7 agent, you care less about leaving it on the board.
You slam him in the face, you play South Sea as some sort of distraction, and then you just hope for a Leroy top deck the following turn. And you just hope that no Bone Mare exists in Ben's world.
Right. I think the main thing for not just playing the captain is if you get Bone Mare of your own on the following turn. You really want to have something to play with that, or just a combo effect in general. If you get Vile Spine, you need the South Sea Captain to activate it. If you get SI7 Agent, you need the Captain to combo with it. So it's not necessarily just a throwaway, because I think the thing is, you're either winning on the next turn or you're losing on the next turn.
If Dan trades into this 1/2 Firefly, or even goes face, he's lost. He's just straight up lost.
So what's he doing by going with... Oh, okay, so going with this play, he's giving himself an out of South Sea deckhand, because he can go Captain, deckhand, dagger to face, and he's saying that's less likely than my opponent having Leroy. But Ben has had it for pretty much the whole game, which means he's bringing himself up to a 3-1 victory. An expected victory, given that it was Shaku the Keleseth into the Shadow Step, but really well done there for Dan to give him a solid chance at taking that game.
Yeah, you got to give credit to Dan. A lot of these games he has played to his outs, but Ben has just had, honestly, some pretty good opening hands. And sometimes in Hearthstone, you just get good opening hands and you play them well. And Ben, as like we said, has played his opening hands pretty well as well. I think both players had some questionable decisions across the series, but who doesn't have questionable decisions in Hearthstone? You know, every decision can be looked at one way or the other. Yeah. Just so happened that Ben had some good opening hands in the Priest deck there. He had the Keleseth with the Shadow Step and his Rogue mirrors, the Rogue games as well. So good place for Ben to be in, and he's going to take the series 3-1 against Dan, which rounds us out heading into our final series of the night, Ness versus Cold Hands. And I'm actually really excited to see